welcome to the yet to be named Magic the Gathering podcast. My name is Alex, or Really Pretty Magic the Gathering. I'm sat here with my good friend Dom, or the Dominator. How you doing, Dom?
I'm good, thanks.
Well, we made it to episode 2. Episode 1 went down pretty well. I was pretty happy with that. You know, lots of people listening to it. We enjoyed it, so we thought we'll have another go at it and see how we go from there. First and foremost, this is just a pre-Christmas recording, so we just want to wish everyone happy holidays, whether it's Christmas you celebrate or not. Either way, hope you have a nice time. I'm looking forward to eating lots. What about yourself, Dom?
Yeah, I'm going up to my parents, going to have a nice Christmas meal, and then see how many boosters I can get out of my stocking, I think.
Yeah, I'm hoping for some magic stuff in my stocking as well, but bear in mind I don't have a stocking, it's probably not going to happen.
Oh, no.
Oh well, there'll be a Christmas treat, I'm sure. Anyway, in this episode, we are going to talk about 2 subjects. The first one we're going to discuss is the new play boosters, something that has been spoke about recently. We're going to give our little take on it and go from there. And then the big one we're going to talk about is going to be the cost of Magic. You know, the real big one is going to be our last one. So let's start off with play boosters. Dom, broad question here. What do you think about them? I know this is a big one, but what do you think about them?
Okay, well, first of all, I feel like it's a necessary step that Wizards have taken to maintain boosters for limited play.
Okay.
So, obviously, draft boosters were not being purchased by the wider market. Stores weren't buying them, or if they were sitting on the shelf.
Yep.
And, you know, it's a huge part of Magic is limited play, so you've got drafting and sealed play, especially pre-releases. I love going to pre-releases.
Yep.
And, yeah, I think it'd be really sad if that went away. So I feel like it's a necessary step that they've taken. Until I've had them in my hand, I'm a little bit sceptic, but I think what they've presented so far looks quite good.
I think you've made a really good point here, which is something that was one of the first things I thought about, which was it's very easy to point the finger and be like, they're taking away the cheap option here. And I understand that point, I really do. But I feel like we'll end up getting a bit more bang for buck. And what I mean by that is, I know there's a price difference, but I think there will be more flexibility with a play booster than you get with a draft and a set as well. And we'll dive into the differences in a minute, but I do think once the dust settles, I think we'll have a good product all around. And I mean in terms of all around is for players and as well as local game stores. Because I do think it's worth bringing up that, you know, a lot of these guys are struggling, and, you know, having draft booster boxes sitting on the shelves not selling is not helping at all. I'm always very aware of that. I'm always happy to go to our LGS that is, you know, absolutely fantastic and always there to support us, but I never mind buying product from them because I know it supports them and keeps our play space open. But I am also very mindful that some people can't, and I also understand that as well. You know, I always say support your LGS when you can. I think it's a big one. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously the price of drafting will go up. We are in a cost of living crisis.
Yeah,
at the moment,
that's
which
a very
is something
fair
to
point.
take into account.
Yeah.
Some people's budgets might not stretch to be able to say, you know, do a draft every week now, you know, that kind of thing. But I feel like for the LGS especially, yeah, you can't have dead money sitting there in draft boosters in your back room because no one wants to buy it.
Yeah.
Everyone was buying set boosters because it was just so much better value, even though they were more expensive.
Yeah. I think that's. I think you've just hit something there for me that we'll kick onto this while you brought this up. I'll put my hand on my heart. I can't remember the last time I brought a draft booster because I always feel like it's a feel bad. You know, you crack your pack, you get to your rare, it's a 20, 30p rare that you're probably never going to use, and you pop it to one side, my instant reaction is, well, I feel like I need to crack another one to make that one feel a bit better. Whereas with set boosters, yes, they're a bit ball money, but I do find there's more space to pull more. Like, you pull a nice list card, and you think, yeah, okay, I'm relatively happy. But the play booster will be an interesting one, because although the pricing is going to be the same for a set booster, there is more slots available, but there's less rare slots available. So I wonder when I start cracking them whether I'll start to feel that. In fact, let's talk about... So, Dom, do you want to read about the breakdown of what the new slots are going to be for the play boosters? You know, I can sort of... there is a bit of a difference between the play and the set boosters, so I think it's important that we discuss this.
Yeah, so with the new play boosters, you're going to have slots 1 to 6 going to be common cards, as compared to the old set boosters only had 3 commons.
Yep.
And you had some wild cards there. You're going to get 7th slot in the play booster is going to be either a list card or another common. Mm-hmm. So you bring the list card into drafting and sealed as well, which make, that might spice it up.
Yeah.
You might see changes to the list. At the moment, you get a lot of random cards on the list. Some of them are useless, some of them are brilliant.
Yeah.
I thought the best one was when they made every list card a rare and mythic for the set.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. Maybe they'll bring them more in line so they fit more into the draft environment. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. That's a good thing to do.
But yeah, so moving on, you've got 3 uncommons, slots 8 to 10, which is the same as set booster was.
Yeah.
3 uncommons, and then you've got your traditional rare or mythic rare. Mm-hmm. After that, you've got a basic land.
Yep.
Necessary game piece. Mm-hmm. And then you've got a non-foil wild card, so that can contain what they call booster funds, so various different treatments and things like that.
Yeah. Just a point on that. That's actually the slot that I really like, because I quite commonly like the alternative art stuff. So that's the one for me that you don't get in a draft, that I always think, right, I might get that alternative of common, uncommon, rare, or something like that. That's one that I think is always worth remembering, because that can be a real sweet spot to pull in, can't it?
Yeah. So one thing that is true of play boosters is that every slot can be booster fun.
Yeah.
So some of your commons, uncommons,
that's a really good point,
could all be booster fun cards.
Yeah.
All those alternative treatments, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So after that, you've got a foil wild card, which can be common, rare, mythic, etc. And then the final card is either an ad, a token, or an art card.
Yep. I think the last one is always, I think we always traditionally see as a bit of a dead card. Let's be honest, isn't it? It really is. It's like the land. I don't think we're cracking these packs and be like, oh, I wonder what land we're getting. As bad as that feels. So it does shorten it down a little bit. But I just want to swing back to what you were saying in terms of the first slots. There's more common slots. So obviously this is to help draft. But we were just having a conversation about this off mic, whereas when you open set boosters, sometimes you're not getting those commons that you may want, say, for Pauper, or just the easy come-by commons that you want to put in your commander deck. And I have started to notice that. So that is definitely a good thing. I think that's a good thing. I know some people, there would be an argument of, oh, well, who wants those extra commons? I'd rather not have them and have it cheaper. And I understand that point, but actually more cards, it's better to do like that, because the commons as well, they're at a price point. If you go into Card Market, you're paying so much more for postage than you are for the card itself. It gets a bit ridiculous. So for me personally, I feel like that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think with set boosters also, your commons and uncommons are always loosely kind of collated into a theme.
Yeah.
So, for example, in the latest set, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, if you're not a fan of vampires and your set booster contained all your commons and uncommons were like loosely themed with vampire set, you open the booster going, oh, I don't really want these.
Yeah.
Whereas with the play booster, you're going to get a wider selection of themes from the set.
Yep. I think again it's another plus point. I think it's always worth always bringing back to this point that more cards is better. The set boosters were I can't remember the numbers that they had in it. It wasn't 15, was it? Was it 13 cards? I
think it was 12 playables. You had the art card and ad card, and then 12 playable cards.
That's right. So, and obviously, I know why they brought up to 15, for the draftable, to make it draftable and whatnot. But I think it's always worthwhile that yes, it is a little bit more money, but at least you get a bit more bang for buck. I know the top end isn't there. Technically, it's probably a little less compared to the set, but more cards is always going to be better. Like we said with these common sort of thing. But I think the next thing to sort of maybe bring up is obviously the pricing of this, because there is obviously an increase. A draft booster is your low end pack at the minute, but I think it's interesting to note that these play boosters are effectively going to be priced the same price as set boosters, and I know not everyone's going to enjoy that, as we've discussed. I understand. But what is interesting as well is the variety of prices we've been seeing online so far. So I've seen top ends of well over £200 for a box. Now, this is a to be confirmed price, but I have spoke to our LGS and they're talking about a pack being the same as a set, so about £4.25. That's British pound. And a box price about 140. Now that is to be confirmed. That may go up a little, it may go down. We'll see. But also, you get a bit more. You get a little bit more on those boxes. So whereas say set booster boxes at the minute, you're getting about 30 per pack. The play booster box is going to be 36. So yes, it is technically a bit more money, but at least you're getting some more packs in there. And who doesn't like having more packs? Am I right?
Yeah, that definitely brings it in line with the draft booster boxes. You always got 36 packs, didn't you?
Yep.
Well, so actually, if you're getting 36 play boosters, you will end up with better cards overall.
Yep.
Because you will end up with more rares, I would say, on average. But obviously, the cost is increasing.
Yes.
But it looks like no one was buying those draft booster boxes anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think it's an important point to come back to it. Obviously, there's always going to be that one person that says, well, I used to buy a draft booster box every single set, so me and my friends, and that's absolutely fine. But that is definitely something I've noticed in the last year and a half, is there's always more. What you seem to see sell out is collector boosters, set boosters, a bit slower, but they sell. But what you always seem to see on the shelves now is definitely draft boosters. Whereas I do remember a time when, we'd say to the guys down at Langdon, look, have you got any more drafts coming in? Yeah, they're coming in, they're on their way. I can't remember the last time I saw that. People are clearly not buying them, or maybe it's just our store. I think that is an important point to make as well. I don't often see drafts happening at our LGS. They don't seem to fire too well. I'd be interested to hear from anyone else, actually. Maybe they can get in contact with us on the socials. Maybe that's not their experience. Maybe they are seeing drafts, or they're grabbing boxes and they're drafting with 8 friends or whatever. Maybe it's something that we don't see a massive amount of. But it'd be really interesting to hear from you guys about that and what you think about the introduction of play boosters. But generally, I'm in the same position as you a little bit, that until I get my hands on them, I'll start cracking them open consistently. I would save my judgment until I've finished with my first box at least. But I'm also looking forward to drafting with them as well. I do want to draft more. It's something I want to get better at. And I feel like this may help me a little bit more. A bit more interested. I feel like there's a little bit more from it. But look, you've been in the Magic industry or in the game space for a lot longer than me, so I don't really remember those old school days of drafting these older sets. That to me, there's a weirdly a bit of a nostalgia, although I weren't involved in it. But is it something that you feel like you're going to miss? Do you think it's going to affect drafting that much? Like, how would you feel like it's going to compare towards what we're seeing so far to what you've done in the past? Do you think there's going to be a big difference?
I don't think so. I think they have been innovating with the card slots and sets recently. So, for example, Eldraine, you had the enchantment slot, which added a little bit of spice. Before that, you had the Brothers' War, and you had the artifacts, the old artifact slots as well.
Yeah.
And those cards, obviously, they just enhance the draft and sealed environment. You know, you get these kind of wilder cards or cards from older sets that not necessarily going to be legal in standard, but actually in the draft and sealed environment. They make things a bit more exciting.
Yep.
And I think with the play boosters, compared to draft boosters especially, you will see like an increase in rares and other cards within the draft, which would make, you know, it's just a little bit more exciting. Because I drafted a lot back in the original Theros set.
Yep.
I used to draft at least once a week. And you got to learn the draft environment. And it was interesting because back then, when you drafted, you had a big initial set, and then you had the block system. So you had a big initial set, and then you had 2 smaller sets to follow it, and you would draft from within those 3 boosters. So the draft format evolved over time as the block was released. Whereas now, obviously, you have individual sets. They're all big sets, and each one is totally different.
Yeah.
But I think, the extra card slots that they're putting into various sets make it more exciting. I think, the play boosters, we'll have to see. But it'll be interesting. I would love to do more drafts, and it'll certainly help you with your deck building struggles.
Yeah, help me put a few more lands in those decks, eh?
Yeah,
I am well known for that. Cheeky bugger. All right, okay. So again, a bit of a broad question. Bear in mind, we haven't even had our hands on this product yet. But do you think ultimately the community will miss draft and set boosters? Let's just sort of say let's talk about some predictions. Maybe this time next year, do you think we're going to be saying, "Oh, I miss those days of the draft and the set boosters," or do you think it's just going to be a point of the history where things changed and we can agree that things have moved on? Like, what do you think is going to happen with it?
I think change is always difficult. A lot of people struggle with it. But I think, if you look back, things have changed so drastically from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So you had, like I was saying, the block system. So you had 3 sets all set in the same world.
Yep.
The story evolved over those 3 sets. But if you didn't enjoy a plane, you were stuck on it for most of the year.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, some people will miss those times, others certainly won't.
See, just on a quick side note of that, actually, so I actually quite like the idea of blocks. So something like, say, the recent Kamigawa block, I could have easily had 3 sets of that, and I would have been, yes, please, more. Can I have some more, sir? But I appreciate some people might not have. So Zendikar was good as well. Kaldheim was good, but I'm sure there'd be a set I'd just be a bit like, meh, it's not my set. So then to have 3 more releases or 2 more releases for that, I can understand that 100%. So I feel a bit 50-50 about that. But anyway, sorry, that was a point there, but carry on with it.
Yeah, no, I think change is always going to happen.
Yep.
Certainly within Magic,
Yep.
You had the change in borders even further back than then.
Yeah,
there's a lot of resistance to that. But actually, looking back, I do prefer the modern border, looking at them.
Yeah.
There will always be change, and I think learning to adapt to it. I can't see myself missing draft boosters. One thing I would say is that I do attend or try to attend every pre-release. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting when you go to the first one that uses play boosters. That'll be the kind of acid test for me in how it plays. You get 6 boosters, you build your deck.
That's actually a good point, because I don't think we've mentioned that yet, which is, those pre-release packs will now be play boosters. That will be really interesting to see how that settles and how different it feels. But
also, I know the bundles are changing as well, so you'll end up with play boosts in there.
That's a really good point as well. We haven't mentioned yet. Bundles are going to change. I know I spoke to the guys at Langdon again as well with this. Again, there hasn't been a full confirmation, but there may be a slight increase in price. But I think it's going to be nominal. It's not going to be, £50, £60. It's not going to be the price of a gift bundle at the minute. It's not been confirmed. But you were telling me that actually I didn't realise this earlier that we're actually getting an extra pack in that bundle now, aren't we?
Yeah, so it's at the moment you get 8 set boosters and 40 lands in your bundle.
Yep.
And it's going up to 9 play boosters. You'll get 9 play boosters and you get 30 lands. So reduce the amount of basic lands, but that's not a drastic loss. No. I'd rather have an extra booster than 10 lands.
100%. I'm with you.
I think that's true of everyone.
Yep, exactly. I think, look, I'll kind of lay my cards on the table here a little bit. I actually agree with you. I think change is difficult, and I think we can all be a bit guilty of being a bit negative about change. But I think what will end up happening is it is obviously a big part of Magic's history, the draft booster. It's been there from the beginning, and it does feel like it's going to be, an end of an era, you could almost sort of say. And although I think we'll always have that discussion of, do you remember draft boosters, or, when we play draft boosters of this, I think this will just become the new norm. And I'm not fully going to commit until I get my hands on this product, which I'm looking forward to. But I think this will be a good change. I think once it settles, I think there's been a lot of negativity about the price, and I do understand it. There is a big difference, even between, draft and sets. I do get that, and I know people are struggling out there. I hope that doesn't deter people, and I hope it doesn't push people away from Magic. I really do. But I do hope this change will be enough that will keep local game stores going and keep their spaces open for us to go and buy our product and to go play inside. I know that almost seems like a bit of a, I should be thinking about my wallet, but actually I do think about these guys. They've got a business to run. I know they're getting squeezed from all angles in terms of bills. I hope this is a positive thing for them and we can move forward and go, do you know what? We've got a good product, or at least as good as product as a set booster, but it leaves LGSs with a bit more wiggle room, and it gets people coming in. It can continue to get people to go in there, and they can continue to run their businesses. That's what I think, and that's what I hope, really.
Yeah, I think it takes away the decision of what you're going to order from your distributor, right? If you're a LGS, maybe before you'd order, 60% set boosters and 40% draft.
Yep.
Now you can just order play boosters.
Yep.
Maybe it'll take a little time to get the levels correct.
Yep.
But there's no chance that you're going to have unsellable products sitting on the shelf.
Yep.
Because it'll all be the same booster.
Yep, exactly. And I think ultimately that will help as well. Instead of, we want some packs for drafting, or we want some packs just to crack for fun, or blah, blah, blah. It's one product. I think it will just tidy the product up a little bit, because there is a lot of product out there at the minute, and sometimes, particularly explaining to new players, it can be a chore explaining all of it. So 2 products into one, I think this time next year we'll land and we'll be happier for it. I hope everyone else feels like that. I know there will be people that will be disappointed. Obviously the price is going up. I hope it doesn't push people out, but I think that's where it will land, basically. Yeah.
I think we haven't really touched on also the printing. Wizards they can just print play boosters now, right?
Yeah.
So you have certain products that have been delayed to various markets.
Yeah.
That might streamline that process.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, that is something that they have seemed to struggle with in recent years. I know that definitely affects me maybe a bit more so than others, because I know the collector boosters are normally the thing that get knocked on the head. So draft and set and bundles were always available first. Sometimes there was a week, sometimes 2 weeks between that and collector boosters. So yeah, I think that's actually a really good point. Hopefully it'll help streamline things and get products on shelves quicker. Ultimately that's got to be good for everyone. There's nothing worse than you're sitting there like, I can't wait for these X to come out, and you see someone across the pond or someone else get the product before you, and that's always a feel bad, really, isn't it? So
Yeah, definitely. If all your friends are playing with yours and you forgot to put in your pre-order, there's a delay. There's nothing worse.
That's always a feel bad. Yeah, I've been caught out on that many a time. But I think my problem is I always want to pre-order far too much, and I always go no, dial it down, pre-order what I need, and then when it comes to it coming out, I'm the same with the precons, Commander precons. I always think, I want to see them in action first, and then I see them like, oh my god, I really want that one, and then it's trying to get hold of them because it's always the one that's everybody else wants, so it becomes printing issues can become an issue. Hopefully that streamline stops that. That will help, won't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Hopefully, that's a really good point. Actually, I didn't really think about that. That's good. Anything else on the play packs, play boosters?
I would say I'm looking forward to it. And I just need them in my hands and crack some and play an event and then see how it plays.
I'm really looking forward to them. Like full disclosure, I really am looking forward to them. I can't wait to get to know them a bit better and feel them. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. It'll be fantastic. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. So they're going to be released in the next set, which is Murders of Karlov Manor. Just remind me, Dom, when's is that release? You got that off the top of your head?
I think it's January.
Yes, coming soon, isn't it?
Yeah, end of Jan. And they're releasing alongside the Clue set, which
that's right.
is really interesting.
Yeah.
I'll probably try and pick one of those up because that's the way I can get some of my other relatives playing.
Yeah.
Again.
Again, I think it's a good thing if you're having crossover products that bring new people into Magic. I know we spoke about it a little bit in the last post, but I think when you get those crossover products, that's got to be a good thing. Like you said, Zed, if it gets your nan interested in Magic the Gathering, or your brother is the example you used last time, but that's got to be a good thing, not a bad thing, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, especially with Christmas coming up, because now that they know what Magic is, I can tell them what I want for Christmas and get Magic, you see. This is the prime reason that I'm teaching my family how to play Magic, is that they can buy it for me for my birthday and Christmas. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that. It's when they then start buying you a product, you're like, oh, God, I don't really want this. Yeah. Maybe a bit more education is needed. But
yeah.
Look, there is always, as Magic the Gathering players, we always have that itch to play. And there is nothing worse than when you say to someone, oh, do you want me to teach you it? And you get that glazed look. Whereas hopefully, the same as you, I'm looking forward to hopefully introducing this to some of my family and my friends. And, hopefully that will give them just a little taste, I feel like Lord of the Rings was fantastic for that. I know I've mentioned it before. I had a friend that come to me, knows nothing about Magic, but he sort of said, I really like Lord of the Rings. I'm interested on collecting and learning to play it. So it's proof that these crossover products work. Obviously, we've got Marvel coming up. That will be a big one.
I'm really looking forward to that one.
Oh,
yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, me too as well. God, I hope it's the classic comic art. If it is, I'm just going to lose my mind because I love that stuff.
I think we're definitely off topic here, but
we definitely.
I would love them to do some like alternative treatments of like Silver Age comic covers and all this kind of stuff.
Oh my god, yeah!
There's so much potential there.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay, what about the? Should we go to what's probably going to be the slightly bigger topic, but does link into it to a certain degree, which is I'm going to ask you a question, Dom. Is Magic too expensive?
What a question. Okay, I mean, it depends, I think, what kind of player you are. Are you a collector? Are you a commander player? Are you playing a particular format?
Yep.
The cost, I would say, has increased.
It has.
Let me start with collectors. So there's so many fancy cards, variants. Mm-hmm. You've got serialized cards, which are like the really, really even
big chase ones,
bigger chase cards now. Yeah. So if you collect every card, you're in tears and a wreck on the floor, I would say, in terms of the cost of Magic these days.
Yeah.
But also in that same vein, obviously there is more routes to the cards to get to market from the collector boosters.
Yep.
Which obviously mostly foils and the showcase arts, guaranteed showcase arts in some cases. Maybe it's easier to get them. Maybe the cost of some cards has come down overall.
Yep.
But now there is even more expensive Ultimate Chase cards.
Yeah.
It's like even in the Lost Caverns, we had all the different mana crypts.
Yep.
And the Cavern of Souls.
Yep.
Cards that are desperately wanted and needed.
Yep. Well needed reprints.
Yeah. But you've got the regular version, and then you've got these obviously not neon coloured Chase versions as well.
Yep.
But if you want to collect all of them, obviously that is a much higher cost.
You could argue that is the collector's way low. You know, at the end of the day, that is what, you know, being a collector is about. You know, if you want to dive into that realm, you have to know what you're getting yourself into. I mean, I dip my toe into it, and I make no excuses. I do collect, and I do love chasing some of these cards. Am I going to be putting all my hard-earned money into trying to get those serialised cards? Maybe, maybe not. But you make your peace with that. But you don't have to collect.
Yeah, that's a very good point. If you're not a collector,
yep.
say you just play a particular format, you only just have to keep up with, if you're playing Standard, for example, obviously you have rotation.
Yep.
So your deck might rotate out. That's what happened to me when I first started playing Standard.
Oh, yeah.
Built my deck, and the entire thing rotated, and that was the end of it for me.
Yep.
But
that is always a fallback.
Yeah, it's something you have to take into account. You will need a new deck at some point, or you'll need upgrade pieces from various sets that come out.
Yep.
We've also got contend with bans.
Yep.
So, you know, just recently we had the Fury ban, which we discussed on.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Obviously, I sort of said that maybe Grief may catch a ban as well. It did not.
No.
But we'll see. It's still seeing quite a bit of play.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Even post-ban, we've had Rakdos still taking wins at tournaments.
We have. So. Yeah. That's proving that how strong that deck was.
Yeah.
But I also wonder whether people shifted too hard away from it, so almost didn't think, oh, Rakdos won't be played, so we'll worry about other stuff. So whether there was just a bit of sneaky manoeuvring, a bit of time, I think we'll see that settle.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that goes.
I think people who knew the deck have adapted it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And if you enjoy playing it, then, yeah, you can still take wins with it.
Yeah. So you'd argue, actually, that could be seen as a good ban because the people that want to play it are still playing it, but it is not so dominant and has allowed other decks to come back into the format. So you could argue as being a good ban, really.
Yeah, I think if you'd have banned Grief as well, you might have seen that deck disappear.
I think you're probably right.
And that wouldn't have been a great thing for the overall health of the format. So, we'll just see how it goes, I guess.
Yep.
Moving on. If you're a Commander player, cost of things. So I would throw this back to the reserve list. Mm-hmm. If you're a Commander player, you've got essential game pieces that are stuck on the reserve list, and obviously we've been told to make peace with the fact that's never going away. So
yeah, sure.
You've got dual lands as a prime example.
Yep.
You've got other pieces like Gaia's Cradle.
Yep.
It's another land
big
again.
money cards. Yep.
And then they're stuck on the reserve list, so they're only really ever going to go up in price. Although there was a little blip when they decided to release the 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
$1,000 product.
The product that will not be named, isn't it?
Yeah.
will not be talked about.
So whilst the market kind of rejected it, obviously that was a bit of a worry for, I guess, reserve list collectors.
Yep.
It's not quite as untouchable as we might have thought.
Yeah, I think if you were a reserve list collector, I think there would be good cause for a bit of nerves, because you're not talking about £20-30 cards. You're talking about some big mega money. And look, I think, just on a bit of a side note here, I think it was a good thing that the product was rejected, not because of the product, but because of the price point. I mean, honestly, I think Wizards done a good thing. I think they just got the price point wrong. I think to really make it a celebration, if they made that reasonable priced, people would have loved it. I would have lapped that up like we all would have done. You know, you can sit there and play ye olde Magic of the day. I think it just I do really think they missed an open goal there. I really do. But sorry, I've a bit of a side note there, but I do think that they've missed that little bit there.
No, I totally agree. I mean, if it was, say, £100 for a full set of them,
Yep.
I think it would have flown off the shelves and been one of the best products they'd ever done.
It would have been a celebration. And we would all be sitting here absolutely raving about it. The fact that you could, you'd pick up some packs and you'd say to your friends, do you fancy sort of, drafting some effectively alpha? I mean, I would have done that 100%. And I know you would do as well. I really think that, yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, is it too expensive? I don't think it is. There is an inherent value in a piece of cardboard being worthless, you would say.
Yeah.
But obviously, because you're playing a game with them and, they have a value. So you had the 1-in-1 ring.
Yep.
Is effectively worth £2 million, even though it is still a piece of cardboard.
Yep.
So as a collectible, it's always going to be worth as much as anyone is willing to pay for it.
Okay.
And I think, as a Commander player, you don't have to keep up with every card going.
Yep. Look, I think it's a good point just to sort of step in at this moment in time, because we've spoke about a lot of the top end of the expense, and we can't hide behind that. We hear about this a lot. Collector boosters being expensive, the Magic 30th product that was wildly too expensive, chase cards, the Sheldrids of the formats, the Furies, or pre-ban Furies and that sort of stuff. Like, there's always going to be those cards, and there's always going to be that side of things. But I think what's also worth discussing is that it's as expensive as you want to make it. Now, let me explain myself. If you want to play Vintage, Legacy, Modern, any of those type of formats, look, you can do it on a budget, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to play up against meta decks at competitions, you're in trouble. Like, you are in financial trouble, really. You are probably going to have to spend some money. Even if you nip down into something like Pioneer, the price point dips down, in my opinion. The difference between Pioneer decks and modern decks are different, mainly because of the land base, but obviously some of the more chase cards or most playable cards are just more expensive because of them being that playable in modern. But even down in Pioneer, you have still got a price point that you are having to chase. Sheldon is a great example about it. I know it's obviously a standard all-star at the minute as well, but there are other Pioneer cards that are still big money cards. Even when you nip down into standard, yes, we're not rotating as much, which is... I still not decided whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, personally. I feel like you've got the repetitive decks are hanging around for longer, but we are obviously adding more cards to the card pool, so in time, hopefully, that will happen. We'll see what happens with that. But then you nip down into formats like Pauper. Now, I'm a big fan of Pauper. I've made that quite clear over all sorts of stuff I've done. I'm a big fan of Pauper. To me, it feels like the power of old Pro Tour Magic, and I love it. I think it's fantastic. I also really like the price point of it. A Pauper meta deck is reasonable priced compared to other meta decks. It's still, there is still, chase cards, expensive cards, and, things can change quite quickly. But I still feel like Pauper is a great format to go and play high-level Magic at a arguably reasonable price. But let's even go further down the totem pole at this moment in time. We were talking about this before we started recording. You could legitimately buy a draft booster box or play booster box when they arrive, and you could make a pod of it. And basically, you kind of go, okay, this is going to be the packs, the set packs. We're going to draft it. We're going to have some fun with it. We're going to put it back into the original packs, and then we're going to go again. So for the outlay of the box, you and 7 other friends could get some serious amount of Magic played out of that. Let's go a bit further down the totem pole from that again. I mean, most of the time you could probably go into your local LGS, or there are places you can go that will sell you bulk. And it is cheap. It's ridiculously cheap. You can buy bulk cards of 1,000 cards, 2,000 cards. I don't know the price, but it's going to be between £10 and £50. That's a lot of... I know... Well, actually, it might even be cheaper than that, to be quite honest. You know, I've seen bulk that you've got some seriously good cards in. You know, you trawl over Marketplace, eBay, things like that. You can still get some good stuff. But what I'm trying to sort of say is, after all of that, is that I think you can make it as expensive as you want. If you want to go be hyper competitive in Legacy, I'm sorry, man, you're not playing cheap Magic, and you've made your bed. If you and 7 of your friends want to all chip into a draft/play booster box, you can get some serious good Magic out of that. I mean, I know I've just sort of said a lot of information there, but what do you reckon to that, Dom?
I agree. I think, yeah, it is as cheap as you want to make it. You can even cultivate your own format by creating cubes. Is another one.
Yeah,
you can have a budget cube.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's a great example. Exactly. And that's something that you can always, will never rotate. You can add in, take out as and when you eat. So you control it, you know, and you may, if you do like a peasant cube or a pauper cube, again, they're cheap cards. You know, you can pick them up relatively cheap and easy. So again, you're keeping the price point down for so much longer.
Yeah, I think... yeah, I mean, you've got Jumpstart as well. You know, if all you're looking to do is play some casual Magic with your friends, then, yeah, you've also got these other products, like this Clue game coming out as well. You know, that's another example.
Yeah, well, you're playing multiple levels of game with one product as well.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I agree.
So, yeah, I mean, in terms of, is it too expensive, you've got various products where the prices seem to increase without kind of validation. I would say, so like some of the Commander precons we saw, we had 2 premium sets released back to back. We had the Lord of the Rings set, which was a higher price point, and then that fed directly into the Commander Masters, which was again an even higher price point.
Yes,
and you had the Commander precons with those sets. You had the Lord of the Rings ones, which were around £45. And then you had the Commander Masters ones, which are around £70, and some of them now are gone even higher than that, up to maybe 100. And I don't think you're really getting the value out of those products for what you're paying for them. If you can find them cheap, great. But at the initial price point, I thought they were slightly high. And I think, especially with the Commander Masters, you still see it on shelves quite a lot, because it was at that kind of price point, maybe a little too high. Yeah,
I think just on that point, actually, is something that I know I've had people on Instagram sort of speak to me and talk to me about this. Honestly, pre-ordering is the best, most economic way of getting the product you want. I mean, you know, I know we've already mentioned quite a few times, but the guys at Langdon are fantastic, because you will pre-order at I think they are the most, or one of the most competitive around. I very rarely see cheaper. But more importantly as well, and this is where we work into what you're talking about, yes, sometimes the price may shift a little bit after release, but it is a small shift. Whereas you have got other places online, you are seeing the big shift of, like, the Warhammer 40k decks was a great example like this as well. You know, if you wanted to get the Surge Foil Commander decks, they were mega money. I mean, I was lucky enough to pre-order all of them, and I'm glad I did, because they were wild. The pricings were wild, absolutely wild, which is really unfortunate that official stores feel like they have to do that. I understand they may feel like they're losing profit, or they could make a bit more profit, which leads back into what we were saying earlier about keeping these places open. But nothing feels bad than when you know a product was up for a pre-sale price of £45, it releases, and then it goes up to 80, 90, £100. Nothing makes you feel worse about somewhere you're going to go spend your money and spend your time than when that happens. That is a feel bad, and frankly, I think shouldn't happen, personally.
Yeah, I mean, it can even happen with singles. Right?
That is right.
You can say buy singles, but sometimes on the pre-order price of some of these singles, you can order them and then, or you don't order them and then they've tripled in price because they start seeing play in various formats that you haven't really considered.
Look, I've done that with pre-ordering singles. I've pre-ordered them because I thought, yep, okay, I want to get these at a price I know they're going to be at, instead of having to, get my shoulders out and battle people to get hold of them and have to overpay. I've pre-ordered them, received them. Within a few days, the price plummets. But I've also had it the other way. That is the gamble. But I do think standard products, i.e., your booster boxes, your commander products, anything that is effectively out of the box, I think it should be there or thereabouts. Pre-order, cheaper price, fine. If it goes up in price due to demand, I don't have a problem with that. But when you're either nearly doubling the price, I'm not too sure if I can get on board with that.
Yeah, I mean, that is one thing as well. Langdon, they don't price gouge on their pre-con.
No.
So, yeah, they always remain the same price, whereas other retailers, you see them sometimes doubling in price if there's a particular card in there that ends up being very, very valuable.
But I think that's a commendable thing, because that makes me feel as a customer that when I go into that shop, I know they're not going to gouge me. And yes, sometimes they might not have the product because they are at a reasonable price point and people will buy it up. But ultimately, I think that's a good thing for the community, not a bad thing. Price gouging is never a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you got when they released like these Mythic Edition Secret Layers, for example, that went out to stores, and you saw them. It's kind of similar to the old From the Vault products, where that was back when they had an MSRP, right?
Yeah.
And even then, some stores obviously ignored that and sold them at a much higher price point. Whereas now that's gone, obviously stores can sell it at what they want, and if people buy it, great for the store. Maybe not great for someone who wanted that product and can't get hold of it because it's now too expensive.
Actually, just bringing up recommended retail price, there's been lots of chat about that actually not having a recommended retail price, it plunges the price to the bottom. So there's a race to the bottom, which actually then makes that price gouging feel even worse, because you have got companies online that can sell it for an extraordinarily low price because they buy in such massive quantities. I don't have a problem with that. That actually leaves a door open for people that are either on a strict budget. That opens the door to them. And again, I don't have a problem with that. But that price, that sort of push to the bottom, is also part of what's feeding local game stores to their struggles. It may be a £5 difference, but that could be the difference between selling one product and 10 products. And that 10 products, when you're earning £5 more, can then be the difference between, we've got a bit more towards the energy, or we can invest in some more products, or we can invest in a nicer game space for people. So I think it's always worth remembering.
I think, I mean, some of these, like, Amazon Prime example, sometimes they're selling it for less than it costs an LGS to order it from their distributor.
Yeah.
And at that point, something's got to give, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It might not be worth them, cracking them for singles, and then you can't order those singles because there's nothing in stock anywhere.
Well, that comes up to a really interesting point in terms of expense, because, look, there's been lots of talk for, I've been hearing it for at least the last 2-3 years, if not longer, that, buy singles, don't crack packs. But that has a knock-on effect as well to the market, which means that those chase cards, those expensive cards, there's less of them. Less of them, higher price, more expensive to play in that format. So I'm not standing here saying, you need to go spend all your money on the gamble of a box. That's not what I'm saying. But it is something to consider. Buying singles is the right way of doing it. But if you're after your chase singles, that can be more expensive because there are less of them. And if local game stores aren't cracking packs to sell singles, which I know a lot of them are not, because they just can't afford to pay that price, crack that box, and they're lucky if they've got one or two of the chase singles that are doing the rounds, they're effectively losing money on it. So they're then relying on their customers to open those boxes to bring into store to trade. I know I heard a podcast the other week, they were talking about this in terms of going to big events, and it was it was a really good point actually, because what's now happening is you used to be able to rock up to sort of GPs and large Magic events, and you could buy the singles you wanted, whereas because they don't have those singles, you sometimes can't. That podcast was the Herald Tour, in which people should definitely go have a little listen to. Really nicely put together, some really good points. We know Emma Petler as well. It's fantastic to hear her voice on a podcast, but definitely go check them out. But just coming back to these cards, it is feeding the expense as well, or I believe it is. I'm not saying you need to spend money on boosters to bring singles down, but I think that helps. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're not cracking packs, there is no singles, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's always going to be people that crack packs, myself included. But even I don't buy as much as I used to. Even I've gone more to a healthy, I will crack packs and I will buy singles. So,
But even when you do crack booster box, do you list all those cards up on, say, Card Market or anything like that?
Well, half the time I don't need to, because I know they're going to be so low.
Yeah.
Realistically, we're all guilty of this. I'm looking for the top 10 cards, or any particular card I know that's going to go in X Commander deck or X Pauper deck or Pioneer. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're all doing that now, and that price point is affected by that, 100%. What do you think can be done to reduce those costs? Or do you think we are where we are and we have to manage those cost points ourselves? I.e., how we've been talking about playing different formats, or not buying as much, or only spending what we can, afford to, or effectively.
I think it's a growing problem. You can always play a budget deck within the format, but if you don't enjoy playing that deck, obviously you're not going to want to continue to do that.
Well, there's also a talking point of, if you take a budget/jank deck to your Friday Night Magic, where you've got people either spiking or you play against meta decks, there is a considerable difference. And I'm not there just to win. I'm there for fun, but there's only so much, getting your head stomped that, before you kind of go, am I having fun? Do you know what I mean?
It is nice to win the occasional game.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, obviously I won a recent pre-release, went 5-0.
Yeah.
For the first time ever, and I've been playing, pre-releases for 10 plus years. So that was a cool thing to happen. But yeah, in these constructed formats, if you get stomped every week with your budget deck, that's a feel bad. I know they have been releasing the challenger decks.
Yep.
To give you a kind of a foot up to some of the meta decks.
See, I've opened a few of these challenger decks. I've been doing some recording with them and playing them as well. It's the same as with the starter decks. So the fresh out of the box, they're about £10-15. I tell you what, they are fantastic. And the Challenger deck is a good example of that as well. You are playing Pioneer, and it can be tuned. I think you make a really good point. They are a fantastic product. I wish they had more products like this. Particularly, I know Standard doesn't currently have one, but I wish they'd done something like that, and maybe a modern version. I think would be a really good shout, personally.
That would be great. I know, obviously, with the Modern Horizon sets, has dramatically increased the cost of Modern, because your deck effectively rotates.
Yeah. Well, we've got Modern Horizons 3 on the way, so I think a lot of people are nervously hoping it doesn't happen again. But
maybe there'll be some modern challenger decks with it. Who knows?
I would love that, and personally, I think that is an open goal for Wizards, because I think you are bringing people into the format of Modern, which is a fantastic, high-powered format, by the way. But if you're bringing them in on a budget, I think that's a great thing. Again, two or three of your friends, all by yourself, like the Challenger version of a Modern deck, you can have some great fun, and you're having high-powered fun as well. I would love them to do a product like that. I think it'd be fantastic.
I don't know what the price point would be, though. That's the only thing.
Well, yeah, that is. But then again, it's a bit of a difficult one, isn't it? Really, because how would you go about? Maybe it's a conversation for another pod, because this could get quite big and in depth. But I think the land base is probably going to be most of that. But whether you sort of say, okay, I'm paying more money, but I've got my land base already, or most of it, or good part of it. I'm not saying it needs to be, 4 fetches, 4 shocks. But if it gives you a taste of it, if it gives you an introduction into it, maybe it would then be worthwhile. Fetches have gone down in price in recent years. So maybe now is that time that they can do it. Have, dare I say, a fetch, or maybe even 2, in a starter product. Ooh. Can you imagine?
Ooh.
That'd be amazing.
I know that they've proven they can, they had the brawl decks where you got a shock land in each of them.
Exactly. Exactly. Maybe we'll come back to another pod, because I think that's a really interesting subject. But okay, I'm gonna. Have you got anything more to say on that? I'm probably going to wrap up with another question, but
yeah, I would say, what can the average player do to keep their costs down?
Yep.
Even though sometimes it might not be possible, I would say to buy singles that you need rather than crack packs.
Yep.
I know people love to crack packs for the sake of cracking them. It's a fun experience.
Yep.
But if you're on a budget, try and buy the singles, especially obviously constructed formats.
Yep.
It's just much cheaper to buy the cards.
Of course
you need.
it is. Yeah, of course.
Or create a monthly budget.
Yeah.
What you're going to spend on Magic this month. If you feel that you have to keep up, create that and then try and stick to it.
That's a really fair point as well.
And it is a trading card game, so make some trades. Go down to your store, load up your folders.
That is such a good point.
Yeah.
We haven't even mentioned that, but that is an incredible point, because I know you and I have like a little box of trades that we normally have with us, and look, it is a great way, because I've got cards in my trade box that I know that I'm probably not going to use or don't want, but there is actually some standard staples in there, and I've also got a couple of really nice high-end commander cards, and even maybe some modern stuff in there. So you make a really good point. It's a really valid point, actually. Try and trade up to, if you've got 20 playable cards that you're not going to use, but you can trade into that 1 or 2 cards you are going to use. That's a really good point. I remember, on a quick side note, I remember doing that back in the day when I was playing Pokemon. I would trade into the cards I wanted, and I loved it. It's that bartering of like, how about this and this for this? No. Well, what about I sweeten the deal and I pop this in there? We're getting close. Do you know what I mean? Like, when was the last time you traded like that? When was the last time you had to barter with a trade?
Wow, a long time. I've been to a few events this year, and what I've done is I've taken, some various cards to trade into traders.
Yep.
To try and offset, the cost of attending the event. Yeah. Or trading up into dual lands, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Always a good thing to do.
Again, maybe that's something we can come back to for another pod, because I feel like that could be a nice little meaty topic as well. Yeah. It really could do. But you made such a good point there. Like, I'm glad you brought it up. But anything else? Anything burning? Anything else do you think can really make that difference? I'm going to go back to what I originally said, whereas I honestly think you can make it as expensive as you want.
Yeah.
I know it must feel like, I really want to play Vintage, but I can't afford it. But I still think you can play high-powered Magic at a premium price. Personally, I know I've said it before, Pauper, I think, is fantastic for that. You pay high-powered Magic for a budget.
Yeah. I think it comes back to reprints as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, they can do targeted reprints with secret layers and things like that.
Yep, exactly.
Just make sure you buy the non-foil ones if you're going to a competitive event.
Yeah, that's
a whole nother subject as well.
Again, that's a whole other one. I love those foils, even though they pringle, unfortunately. Okay, so I'm going to finish off with one question. This one's probably a bit of an obvious one, but I feel like we've talked about what we can do to bring it down and whether we think it's too much, but do you think the cost is just going to keep going up? And if so, do you think it will reach a point that most or a majority of the community will just go, no, I've had enough?
I think there will be a break point. If it does continue to go up, I think the price of a boost hasn't massively increased over the years.
No, that's also a really fair point to make, because it really hasn't actually.
So yeah, in terms of boost, they've stayed pretty much the same. Obviously now we're going to have this increase because of the play boosters, right?
Yep.
But I think if it does ever reach that point, everyone I know has multiple decks already. You know, if the game becomes too expensive, you can still play with all your existing cards.
Yep.
Especially in Eternal formats.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So
I mean, I hope that doesn't happen. You know, just to sort of like weigh in on my own question there. I really hope that doesn't happen. I would like to say that the community will hopefully keep everything in check. I think Magic 30 was a great example about that. But I really hope that it doesn't. And I hope it doesn't, more importantly, cost new players to come out. You know, to people to go, I'd love to play it, but I can't afford it. I hope that wouldn't happen. It might already be happening. In fact, it is happening. I know people have said that to me already, which is a real shame. I hope that doesn't happen, but you do make a very valid point. Whereas we've still got the products, you know, the community can make a stand if they feel like it needs to. You know, we do have that power.
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, look, I hope you guys have enjoyed our second podcast. I mean, I've certainly enjoyed chewing the fat with you, Dom. I hope you have as well. As always, we've got the socials up now. I know you're on that now. We've got X/Twitter, we've got a page, we've got an Instagram as well. Make sure you guys go follow us there. The podcast is currently on a number of different formats. So we've got we are on Buzzsprout as where we're hosting from, which then goes through to Spotify. I know Apple Pods is there as well, and I know there's a few other ones. So make sure you guys give us all those follows and likes. We're always up for feedback as well. We always want to hear what you guys want us to talk about. So make sure you get in contact on those socials, whether it be Twitter or Instagram. We love your feedback, and we'd love some questions. You know, we'll happily talk about things that we want you to talk about. But look, as a final thing, you know, hopefully everyone has a lovely holiday period. I know me and Dom are going to have a great Christmas, eat too much food and enjoy it. But yeah, hopefully we'll have you back for the next pod, and we look forward to speaking to you then. See you later.
See ya.